Just getting everything all set up. 27 people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is not there. That's good. That's good. Just like that. Okay. And welcome, welcome. This is Seed Starting Basics. And I have all kinds of fun things to show you. And then I'm going to do isn't this cool? This is the windowsill starter. And these are the Jiffy pellets that look like this when you put them into the tray. And when you add water to them, they puff up, and there's a spot right there where you can put the seeds. It's so cool. And then it has a dome on it to keep it humid and warm. So you're going to understand what all this stuff means when I get done. Let me get my PowerPoint up, and I've already got a question and answer. So normally what I do, I go through the presentation and then I do the questions and answers afterwards. Let me get my PowerPoint up because it's really a good PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. All right, here it is. And we're going to share it. Perfect. And I'm going to get it started. Oh, that's not the right thing. Hold on. There we go. Oh, that's not what I want. Slideshow. There it is from the beginning. Oh, there we go. Ooh, doesn't that make you look like you want to start seeds? Okay, and let me check. Oh, let's go backspace. I'm going to check this questions and answers and see what it says. Hi, Susan. I have lots of small pine cones. You know what? I'm not going to answer that one right now because we're talking about seed starting. So we'll get back to that later. All right. Thanks, everybody. If you work on the question and answer column and put those there instead of the chat box, it works so much better for me. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the plan, and I'll answer the questions afterwards. Okay, so seed starting basics. Okay, I have to have this on here. Technology is just so wonderful, isn't it? So the big question is, why would you start seeds indoors? And there are just all kinds of reasons. I mean, all kinds of reasons. You can plant hard to find varieties. And then usually when you come into the garden center, like the garden centers and chalet, you'll find, usually you only find often fewer than a dozen varieties of tomatoes and peppers and things like that. So there are hundreds and hundreds of other seeds available. So if you want to try something different, and I always encourage people to try at least one or two things new and different each season. That's how you learn. Okay, you can actually save money because a packet of seeds costs, just a few dollars, $2.79, $1.75, depending on the company and the variety. And there's usually a dozen or more seeds in each seed packet. And a single plant often will cost more than an entire seed packet. So, so that's one thing. It's a good budget stretcher. And then another reason that I love to start seeds indoors is, you're nurturing a little patch of green indoors, and it's just such a wonderful way to beat the winter blues. Now, I know this week we've all been really happy because it went, into I think we were up to 69 degrees yesterday, almost 70, or we almost broke a record. Well, we broke a record on it was the highest low temperature of the day. But boy, what a nice breather for all of us, after the really severe cold that we had for the majority of February. So you can really get over the winter blues. And then I think it's really particularly rewarding to grow a plant from seed all the way to harvest. It's so much fun to do that. Oops. Now, what are the easiest seeds to start indoors? Now, if you're really new to seed starting, begin with reliable, easy seeds like tomatoes and peppers and basil. Zinnias, oh my God, zinnias are the easiest and the best. marigolds, and cosmos. And these all really, they germinate really quickly and they grow really quickly. So those are the ones, if you want to set yourself up for success, try those types of seeds if you're just a beginner. Now there's all kinds of varieties. And when you want to select your varieties of seeds, and especially of vegetables, come to Chalet. This year we have four different brands. We have Renee's seeds. I love Renee's. It's Renee's Gardens. And Renee Shepherd actually is a personal friend of mine. So I love her seeds. All of her seeds, the varieties that are in her seed lineup only make it into that lineup if they have tested in her 6 different research plots all over the United States. And if they are successful in all 6 zones, they make it into her line, which is really, really, spectacular. Then there's Botanical Interest, another wonderful family-run operation. They started, selling seeds out of their garage, and they just do a beautiful job. Their packets are wonderful. I have several here that I was going to show you. This is Botanical Interest. Is really great. They have these wonderful charts on the back and these tags that you can actually cut and put on a stake out in the garden. Seed Savers Exchange. Seed Savers is a group, a wonderful group that got together wanting to save the seeds that our ancestors brought with them from whatever country they moved to the United States from. And so what's great is they have the stories about those types of seeds on the back. They also have really good instructions. And then Hudson Valley. And Hudson Valley, these are great if you want to give them as gifts. Their seed packets are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. They're pieces of art. They're works of art. And then if you also want to check out catalogs, the catalogs have been set out, and a lot of people have been looking at them, especially when it was so cold in February. But Totally Tomatoes is one of my favorite. Park Seed, Johnny Seeds, and Burpee. Those are really good seed catalogs to look at. Now, the variables to consider during your selection process, you want to look for plants that have disease resistance. You want to always look to see how many days until harvest. We only have a 160-day season. So, if you're banking on a tomato that takes 80 days, then if you don't get it out early enough, you might not get the harvest that you would like. So always look at the days of harvest. And what that means is from the time that you put the plant in the ground, it takes that many days until you get a harvest, not the day that you started the seedling indoors. That's kind of a sad thing to understand, but you have to know reality. Okay, then you also want to know the plant size. So as you're planning your garden, you need to know which are the tallest ones, which are the shortest ones, because your taller ones want to be to the north of all the shorter ones, because our summer sun is from the south. And if you put the tall ones on the south side of the garden, it's going to shade all the plants that are to the north of it. So the plant size, and then know whether you're working with hybrids or heirlooms. And I'm going to tell you the difference of that. Examples of heirlooms. These are all Seed Savers examples. Oh, there's one Botanical Interest. 2 Botanical Interests. Black Creme tomato, a delicious, wonderfully flavorful tomato, and that was brought over. And I always love this one. I didn't see this one on our order this year, but it's called the Lazy Housewife bean. And these are green beans that don't have a string on them. So they didn't have to be, destrung, or the string didn't have to be pulled out of them before they were served. So if you grew those, you were considered a lazy housewife because you didn't go to the trouble and you didn't have to go to the trouble of pulling the strings off of the beans. That would be one of my beans, I think. Not so much lazy housewife, busy housewife. Okay, and then like the Botanical Interest, the gourmet blend beets, those are all heirloom, varieties of beets. And then Roma Italian tomato is an heirloom. And then Grandpa Admire's lettuce is an heirloom. And again, these are valued, number one, because you can collect the seed from them. They're true to seed. And then the flavors, the flavors and tastes are just incredible. Now, if you're looking at the difference between heirlooms and hybrids, the heirlooms, you can always retrieve the seed. Hybrids, no, you cannot retrieve the seeds. They're usually an F1 hybrid. What that means is one variety of the plant is crossed with another variety, and they do that to get the best of both, and you get hybrid vigor. So you get it, and one of the benefits of the hybrids is they have usually been hybridized for disease resistance. They've been selected because they are the most disease resistant. The heirlooms are not as disease resistant. So sometimes you have to do other precautions to make sure you get your harvest to prevent the diseases. Again, heirloom is the flavor, the sustainability, and then the memories, of the family memories. Hybrids, disease resistance. There's many varieties available. They're usually always readily available. And then there's new hybrids each year. Okay, now look at the seed packets. They are loaded with information. Excuse me, information. And the botanical interest, I was just talking about that. You can see the front, and it tells you it's a warm season crop. Excuse me. Swig of coffee. Sorry, you guys. There we go. And right on the front, it says 80 days. That's the days to harvest. It tells that it's an heirloom when you look at that. And it talks about, they're Italian paste tomatoes. Now on the back side, it has it has the days to harvest and the depth to plant. So all that information is there. And again, you can cut that tag out. Now, when you're again considering the variables, look at disease resistance. And so on this Roma tomato, it talks about being VFN resistant. It's a determinate type, which means it grows to a certain height and then it produces its crop. And the VFN is verticillium, fusarium, and nematode resistant. So that's, those are valuable attributes, to have. So you want to always look for the disease resistance. And then I talked about days to harvest. And again, on botanical interest, it's right on the front of the package. So this little cherry tomato called Sugar Sweetie, which is a wonderful tomato, you get tomatoes in 65 days. Incredible. Okay, so then germination time. This is one of Renee's garden seed packets. And I love it because you turn it sideways and you can see all the information you need to read right along the side of the package. And the germination time, is right there, days to germination, and that says 7 to 14 days. So always look for that, so and after you've planted your seeds, you keep a record and then check in 7 days to see, how they're doing. Now, here's the question. When do I sow my seeds? Timing is everything. Your goal is to grow seedlings that are the ideal size for transplanting into the garden at the proper time. And when we're talking about the proper time, you're talking about when it's weather beneficial to plant those plants. So the sowing dates depend on, number one, the average date of the last spring frost. And here, that average date in the Chicago area is May 15. Now, when you're talking about the average date of the last frost, that's an average. So that means that sometimes it stops before, sometimes it stops, the last freeze is on the 15th, and sometimes it can be a little later. So if you're really going to be safe, especially with plants that can be fussy. Tomatoes can be fussy. Peppers can really be fussy. Basil can be a brat. So wait another week to 2 weeks. I never put my tomatoes, my basil, or my peppers out in my garden until Memorial Day. So that's the 30th or the 31st of May. Now, the other sowing dates depends on whether the plants prefer cool or warm growing conditions. So we have cool season crops and warm season crops, and I'm going to talk about that. You'll know which is which. Warm season crops are the ones I just was talking about. Tomato, classic. Peppers, classic. Basil, classic. Also cucumbers, corn, squash. Those are all the warm season crops. Cool season crops are things like peas and beets. No, not beets. Peas, radishes, lettuces, spinaches, and kales and cabbages. So then it also depends on how quickly the seed germinates and how quickly it grows. One of the things that's really disappointing for a lot of people is the fact that carrots can take 21 days to germinate. For many, many years, I just always thought the rabbits were always eating my carrot greens when they were growing, and it's just that I never had patience to with my carrots. So they take much longer to germinate. So you have to understand on that. Now, when should I sow my seeds? Most of the seed packets will suggest a planting time, such as, sow seeds indoors 6 weeks before your average last frost date. Now, to calculate your planting time, start by determining, again, your average last frost, and then mark it on the calendar, and then count backwards in week increments. And I learned from a good friend I always count based on Saturdays, or she always counted based on Saturdays because she always had Saturdays off. I always count based on Sundays or Mondays because those are my 2 days off. So I count back on that because that's when I can actually get out in my garden and plant. Okay, why is the frost-free date so important? Again, I explained that, but I'm going to repeat it. It is the average date of the last frost here in our growing area or anybody's growing area. And it's different all over the place. And my sisters live down in Northwest Arkansas, and their frost-free date, ours up here is May 15th. Theirs down there is April 25th. So, so it depends on where you are in the United States. Okay, and again, that's the distinction between putting cool season crops out and warm season crops out. So those are the annuals and the vegetables. And, it's the guide. The frost-free date is the guide for doing your planting schedule. Okay, now this is a big bunch of information right here, but I just wanted to show you that you can find things like this, and I can send this to you. So, when to start and what to start. So when you're looking at 4 weeks from the frost-free date, let's start down at the bottom. Those are things like morning glories, nasturtiums, melons, cucumbers, squash. And I'll come back up to the top, or let's look at the 10 weeks. 10 weeks from the frost-free date, you can do delphinium, onions, parsley, Greek oregano, impatiens, rudbeckia, and early broccoli. Let's look at 8 weeks. 8 weeks is kind of classic. Well, 9 weeks. 9 weeks is you can do peppers, coleus, shallots, eggplants, and cherry tomatoes. And then 8 weeks, tomatoes, alyssum, cleome, somi. But anyway, you can see how this is a chart on when and what. Now, you want to sort your seed packets. So a lot of people were really smart and they've come into Shelley and they've purchased their seed packets early. And that's a really smart thing to do because I learned from my friend Renee at Renee's Garden that all of the garden centers doubled their orders for this year based on the sales that they had last year on their seeds, and especially the early seeds. After she sent all the orders out to all the garden centers, her warehouses were completely empty. And she warned me to not place an order until later when they've had them restocked. And we're hearing that from a lot of companies. So get out and get your seeds if you haven't purchased them yet. Okay, so now you want to sort your seeds into two different piles. Those that will be directly sown out in the garden, those are usually the warm season crops. That are that, and I shouldn't say that. These are the ones that don't like to be transplanted. So the outdoor pile will include most of the vegetables, such as peas and beans, corns, radishes, carrots, beets, lettuce, spinach, melons, cucumbers, and squash. Those are the plants that don't like to be transplanted from like a starter pack in out to the garden, and then you're going to have another pack of the seeds you're going to start indoors. Now you want to put a rubber band around, all the whatever seeds you're going to be planting outdoors and set them aside because you're not going to be outdoors for a good 6 to 8 weeks planting. Now, most of the annual flowers will also go into the direct sow pile. So those are things like zinnias, asters, nasturtiums, sunflowers, and calendulas. So you can't set those aside. Now, if your growing season is very short or your garden conditions are especially difficult, you may decide to put some of those annual flowers into your sow indoors pile too. And I know a lot of people that start their zinnias early just for fun. Okay, and then most perennial flowers will need to be started indoors as well. Okay, but we're not talking about that today. Okay, now spread your sow indoors pile and start reading the backs of the seed packets. So unfortunately, you'll probably find that a lot of the planting instructions are pretty vague, but I would be much happier and home gardeners would be much happier if if all of the production people would put on the package saying for the earliest bloom or fruit production start 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date. Sometimes they don't do that. So I'm here to help you to do that. So now sort your package into piles according to the recommendations, making separate piles for the 5 weeks, 7 weeks, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, and so on. Okay, if there's no information that you can figure out on your seed packet, you can be pretty safe just starting all the seeds indoors about 6 weeks before you're going to plant them outdoors. And that's one thing that's really important. Don't start them too early because otherwise you're going to end up with real spindly growth. That you want really sturdy, strong stems. You don't want weak, floppy stems. So hold back. Don't start them too early. Now you want to create your calendar again based on that frost-free date, and so again May 15th. So count back. Week 4 is April 15th. Week 11 is February 26th. I like to have everybody just target March 15th to be your target date to start any seeds inside. That's 8 weeks from the planting date. So then that builds in a good 2 weeks for germination in case you have a seedling that's going to take 10 to 14 days to germinate. So that means you'll have plants that are started and then you'll get them out 6 weeks after they started growing. Okay. Now, making adjustments. There's too much text on this, but I wanted to add it just in case. You might want to start things earlier if the seeds take longer to germinate. You might want to start things later if you have a warmer growing environment. If you have a warmer growing environment, you don't have any cool rooms you can put your seedlings in, then start later because they're gonna stretch, and you don't want that. So now here's the planting schedule that I like to encourage people to follow in this area. So the cool season crops are lettuces, radishes, spinach, anything in the cabbage family, and anything in the onion family. Okay, and so for the warm season, again, count backwards from that frost-free date, and then start the seeds 8 weeks before that date, which is March 15 if you're looking at May 15. And again, the warm season crops: tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and beans. Okay, so here are the recommended supplies. So you can see you always want to have the labels, because if you're planting a lot of different seeds, you're not going to remember what they are when they come up. And especially when they're little baby seedlings, because they all have little round leaves, the first leaves that come out, those are the cotyledon seeds until the true leaves form. So now, how deeply do you plant the seeds? Most seed packets will tell you how deep, but the rule of thumb is to sow the seeds 2 or 3 times as deep as they are wide. And this is just a picture of the kind of the different seeds that come out of the packages. Take care not to plant the seeds too deeply. If you get them too deeply, they won't germinate. Okay. Now, what happens is a seed contains a limited supply of stored food in the cotyledons, and it nourishes it, during germination. And if you plant it too deeply, it runs out of food before the leaves can get up into the sunlight and photosynthesize and create the sugars that it needs. So, so be sure that you don't plant them too deeply. Okay, some seeds like petunias, and we really don't sell any petunia seeds, but they need light to germinate. So seeds that need light, you just sprinkle on top of the soil and then water lightly. All right, so now let's keep moving. Okay, now which is better when you're starting to water? Is it to water from the top or the bottom? Now, bottom watering is usually preferable. And I'm going to show you a neat tool that is excellent. These are self-watering trays, and I'm going to go into more details about these. And it makes it so easy to water from the bottom. They sit on and I'm going to just keep moving forward because I have great diagrams. You can see better in the PowerPoint. All right, so for small seeds and surface sown seeds, you can use misting with a sprayer to keep the surface moist so they don't dry out before they germinate. Now, the secret to germination is moisture, high humidity, and warm. They like it nice and warm. Okay, let's go. And the self-watering seed system has a capillary mat. It has the reservoir that it sits in. And then there's the stand. So I'm starting at the bottom of the diagram on the right. So you can see the reservoir. And then there's a stand that sits into the reservoir. Then the capillary mat lays on top of that. And then in one of the tails of the capillary mat sticks down inside the reservoir. And then the tray that holds the soil and the seed sits on top of that, and then you put the cover on top of it. And you can see how the water can be poured into a little side opening. This kit actually has a little a water level indicator, so you don't have to stick your finger down to see if it's moist or not. Okay, this is a close-up to show how the roots grow down deeply, and then you can see where the water's in the reservoir on this, and then it's wicking up on that mat, and it helps keep that soil more evenly moist. You never get the drying out of the seedlings that can actually damage them. So it's a real wonderful trick and tool. It's my favorite. I always encourage everyone to do that. And it's called the self-watering greenhouse. It's from Jiffy, and this is the kit right here. And I'll show it after the present. I'll show you more detail on that. Now, if you don't want to do the self-watering, we sell the trays, the black trays. And then the cell holder, the cells sit down in that tray, and then you fill the cells with a seed starting mix, and you just level it off. And I like to encourage people to water it before you put it in the tray. Let the water drain through once, maybe twice, so you make sure it's nice and hydrated before you put your seeds into it. Now, it's really good to have a light. If you have sunny windows, even a sunny window, this is what happens to plants, growing on a windowsill. You can see how these tomatoes really leaned towards the light, and they got rather spindly. And so by having lights, and you can see the tabletop version that is adjustable. I have a stand like the one that's over here on the right. I treated myself years ago and got this 3-tiered light stand. I love it. I absolutely love it. But, and then they also have adjustable lights. So you adjust the lights within 6 inches. This is 6 inches from the tip of my thumb all the way to the bottom of my hand. You want them 6 inches away from the upper surfaces of the leaves. And as the plants get larger, you can adjust the lights up higher. Wonderful tools to have. Okay. And what's great is we've got all the LED versions now, which use much less electricity, and they don't put any heat off. But now, talking about heat, one of the benefits is to have a heat mat. And when you have a heat mat, it keeps the temperature right at 75 degrees. And that keeps the cell temperature between 70 and 75. When you realize that moist soil will be 10 degrees cooler than the temperature, the ambient air temperature. And so the best temperature for seed germination is 70 degrees. So a heat mat is really beneficial. These are my trays or my stands with, you can see the heat mat underneath the trays and with the lights above. And so really an excellent, successful way to, to get good germination. This shows the difference between using a heat mat and not. And you can see the with bottom heat, the size of the root system of a seedling over on the left, and without bottom heat, at the same amount of time of growth, how much less root system there is. So heat really makes a difference. And if you've got a good root system and a strong stem, you're going to have a successful plant and successful crop. Now, the secret for seed germination is warmth and high humidity. So you can see in this tray how the water has condensed because it's so humid underneath that dome. Now, it's important to know that once the seeds germinate, you want to lift that dome up and off because it really restricts the amount of light that can get to the leaf surface. Okay, so here we go. So this is, after the germination, and see how tiny those little shoots are coming up out of the soil. That's when you want to take the top off. Don't wait till you get true leaves formed. You want to give them much bright light just after they come up out of the soil. So that's so important. And people think that, these greenhouses are greenhouses and it helps the plant to stay in the greenhouse. No. When they're indoors and the sunlight has to go through a window and then through a plastic top, it really cuts the intensity of the light down. So those are important things. Now you want to monitor by crop. So in the tray that I did that year, I had a zucchini, the second from the right, that was a cute little zucchini called Ostia. And, but then I also had other things. So you really have to monitor because some things germinated more quickly than others. So, monitor your crop. And you can see how on my, my wooden stakes, I had the name of the crop and the date that I planted it. So I could track it. Now, the time to transplant is when you get the first true leaves. And these were 2-inch cells. So this is that zucchini I was talking about, this Ostia zucchini. The cotyledon seeds are the large seeds over here on the, on the right, when I'm talking about, I'm pointing at. Those are the large oval shaped leaves. And then you can see the first true leaf is that zigzagged edge, the true zucchini leaf. And that was when I needed to take that plug out and then get it into a larger pot. And I thought I brought some larger pots. I did. The classic pots, and we have them either in plastic. These are wonderful 4-inch pots, and because you want to give the roots room to grow. Never restrict root growth because that'll really stunt the plant. So you can either use the plastics, or we have the peat pots too that that we sell in kits of, I think it's 6 in a package. Okay, so now your transplanting mix, or the mix. You want to do it. You can mix your own with a combination of topsoil, peat moss, perlite or vermiculite, or you can use Dr. Earth's starter, or you can use the Espoma seed starting mix that we have. Okay. There's that tray. Just when I was just ready to get these all transplanted outside. You can see all my lettuces and my kales in the one tray, and you can see I've got different tomatoes and the zucchinis and a couple of peppers in the other tray. Now, another supplies, you want to think about fertilizers. And the classic fertilizers, when you're setting out in the garden, or the Dr. Earth tomato, veg, and herb, that's my favorite because it lasts 60 days and it's 1 cup for every 10 square feet. You can make a fertilizer tea with it by using a cup and soaking it in a gallon of water overnight, and then straining the granules out, and then watering the plants with that tea. You can also do it with tomato tone is excellent. Garden tone from Espoma is excellent. Those last 30 days. Biotone starter is a starter fertilizer that you would use when you put them outside, not necessarily when you have them growing. Now, if you don't want to go to the trouble of doing a tea out of a granular, then go to Dynagrow, which is an excellent, very high quality liquid fertilizer. It's a 795. That's the macronutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And then it has 11 micronutrients. This is a label, an enlarged label, so you can see. It is wonderful. And you use it at a half a teaspoon in a gallon of water. And the half a teaspoon is that little screw-on cap that measures a half a teaspoon in that gallon. And that's what you water with as soon as you see the leaves, coming up. As soon as you see the true leaves, that's what you water with once a week. Now, if you're using a self-watering tray, you can put that solution in the reservoir, and it's wicked up, and it's actually pulled into the root system. Now, Root and Grow is also an excellent one. It is 4-10-3 nutrient source: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And the phosphorus is ideal for roots. It also has a rooting hormone. This is better when you're transplanting rather than to use when they're just starting in your seed trays. But transplanting means that once you take it out of that 2-inch and put it in a 4-inch, that's the first transplanting step. So I like to switch off between these two. Okay, and then the difference between using organic-based fertilizers or synthetics, and I just want to talk about this. Plants can't read the labels. They have no idea whether the nutrients they're getting were derived from an organic-based fertilizer or a synthetic. They just want their nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and all their micros. Now, the organic will last longer in the soil, or if you're sprinkling it over the top of a container. Synthetic is more quick feed. It's dissolved in the soil solution, and the roots can suck it right up. The benefit of using organically based, especially when you're gardening outside or even in containers outside, is it will encourage soil microbes, and because you're feeding the microbes with the organic based fertilizers. So it helps build your soil as well. So there are benefits. There are a lot of benefits to it. Okay, now liquid fertilizers, again, like Dynagrow and Root and Grow they're actually synthetic, but it's a quick feed, and plants actually respond so beautifully from it. So now the other recommended supplies, you need that soilless mix. That means the seed starting mix, or a soil-less mix is much safer to use in containers, because it's not smart to use garden soil in your mixes, because they have too many microorganisms that can become pathogens, and maybe insects as well. Okay, so now you need wooden stakes, and I talked about this, seedling flats or pots, a thermometer, so you can measure soil temperature in the garden when you're going to transplant, and then also to measure air temperatures outside. You want topsoil, peat moss, and perlite when you're transplanting, and water-soluble fertilizer, transplanting solutions, artificial light in the early season. And when you're using artificial lights, you want to run the lights. I would set them up on a timer so that it can go from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. You want 16 hours of light to match a full day of sunlight outside. Your minimum amount of sunlight you need for supplies for growing a vegetable garden is going to be 6 hours of direct sunlight shining on the leaves or the ground where those plants are planted. Okay, so now I also talk about the benefits of starting from seed or from transplants, and I sort of talked about this earlier, so I'm going to move on ahead. Now, the cabbage family and cabbage and cabbage, there's a cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli. Those are ones you would start early and set them out as early as April 15th. Lettuces also, set them out as early as April 15th. My favorite leaf lettuces are the black seeded Simpson. And then I also love red sales. Oh, it's so delicious. And you just harvest by the leaf and just let it keep growing and growing and growing until it gets too hot. Okay, leeks, start them from seed as early as March 7th. That would have been this week. And then, thin out the rows, and then you can leave these in the garden until fall for harvest. Okay, it's warm season crops, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, classic warm season. And so then, those are the ones that are so great to start in the trays. Okay, and then herbs, there's annual herbs like basil, cilantro, dill, fennel, parsley, perennial herbs, chives, mint, oregano, sage, tarragon, and I think I said thyme already. And then tender perennials are the bay and then rosemary. They have to be moved back inside. And then then the whole goal is for harvesting and enjoying, and be sure and enjoy your favorite recipes. Now, this just shows you an example of a really great garden. Scott Thalman worked here as a senior sales associate for many years, and this is his garden, and he's grown every year for I think it's been 25 years that he's done this garden. And then this is my garden. You can see my raised bed, and you can see I pack it full. It looks different now because I lost the tree that was making the shade over to the left of that garden. And then happy seed starting. One thing, I'm gonna take the PowerPoint down. Let me do this. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen, and then I'll answer the questions. Why isn't it not coming up? Oh, here we go. There we go. Here I'm back, and I'm going to pull up the questions and answers. Okay, and I'm going to drag it over here, get it out of the way a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now, and then I'll answer these questions, and then I want to show you some of the other fun things I have to share with you today, as far as the equipment that you would need. But let's go ahead. Now, Susan says, I have lots of small pine cones under one of my old pine trees, and a lot of them. Should I remove some and leave some as mulch, or any suggestions you might have? Well, this is totally off topic, but I'm going to go ahead and answer it, Susan. Because pine cones can harbor the diseases, especially the Diplonia tip blight, that can really damage white pines and Austrian pines. We usually suggest removing all those pine cones. So get rid of those, just because they have the fungus in them that can go ahead and add it. So okay, here we're going to say done on this one. And then Linda Murphy, what does seed retrieval mean? Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so on the heirlooms, what you do is you harvest your crop, like you have that black crim tomato. You love that tomato. You use a lot of the tomatoes and eat them and love them and share them. And at the end of the season, save several of the tomatoes and let them get mature on the vines, and then you harvest them, and then you retrieve the seeds out of you let that tomato you smash it up and then wash all of that off, and wash the pulp off, and then let the seeds dry, and then you save them, and you want to save them at room temperature. You can also save them in a cool refrigerator, like put them in a glass jar, and put 2 tablespoons of dried milk in a little plastic or like a wax paper bag inside, and that absorbs any excess moisture that could be in there. Neat trick from the seed savers I learned. Okay, so yeah, that's called retrieval. And that's when you can save those seeds from year to year and then replant them. And that's the benefit of heirlooms. Okay, all right, next one. Bernard Sawyer. I planted some Chionodoxa alba bulbs in the fall. My lawn care service put about 3 inches of mulch over my entire flower bed after that. Well, boy, this has nothing to do with seed starting, but I'll answer it. Will these small bulbs come up through that much mulch, or do I need to try to remove some of the mulch on top of this area? No, the Chionodoxa will be fine. They're tall enough that they'll be able to rise up through the 3 inches of mulch, and especially that mulch, if it was put down in the fall, a lot of it may have broken down, so it's probably not as thick as it was in the fall, but Chionodoxa will definitely come up through that. Okay, so answered that one. Okay, everyone that's waiting for more details on okay, now here's Joan. If you can start a seed in a Jiffy pellet, can that then be transplanted in a larger peat pot with a seed starting cell to get larger before transplanting? Yes, absolutely. What a wonderful question. So when you have, like, this is the cute windowsill seed starter greenhouse, little mini greenhouse. And I love this because it's narrow enough to sit on a windowsill. It's narrow enough to sit on a windowsill in that bright light. Now, what you want to do is put it someplace warmer than in the windowsill to let the seeds germinate. And I showed you earlier how these were hydrated, and see, this is the size they get when they're hydrated. And then the roots will actually grow out of these. So yes, you can take this when you see the true seeds, or when you see roots growing out from around the edge, of that, and then just plant it in a 4-inch pot. So you put your transplanting mix in the bottom of the pot, set this in, and if it's tomato, you can set it more deeply because it'll grow more roots. Otherwise, most plants need to be planted at the level of the root ball. And so you never put soil on top or potting mix on top of a root ball. Roots grow down and out, with the exception of tomatoes. Okay, so that was a great question. And yes, I'm sorry I didn't bring, I had to lug everything over here, so I didn't bring, oh, here's a peat pot. Here's a peat pot. This is a neat set. This is the 7-pot from Jiffy, the 7-pot seed starter. And you can see it has this cool tray. Oh, here, see the tray? In the tray, and there's 7 pots in here. And this is a peat pot. So you could plant it in the peat pot. Here, I'll show you the peat pot right here. And then when it's ready to plant it outside, I always tell people to cut the top edge off, because you never want that edge of the peat moss sticking out of the soil. It can wick moisture away from a root ball. So the other thing you need to do on peat pots is always cut 4 slices in them before you plant them, because sometimes the roots have difficulty getting through that peat mud if it hasn't, been, staying moist enough. But these are just, cool kits. Excellent question. Thank you, Joan. Okay, and then let's do this. Now, MR is Bloomer Reed. Will these recommendations be the same for flowers? Well, yes, they are the same for flowers. The flowers, the problem with flowers, and it's always frustrated me, is that they don't give you the days to harvest on a flower, which would be days to bloom. They don't put that on any of the seed packets. Did I bring any flowers with me? No, I just brought vegetables. They don't give you that. And that always has frustrated me. So, so you just kind of, but the recommendations as far as when to start early, it's really good. So any flowers that are warm season flowers. So things like, and you're not going to start geraniums from seeds, but any impatiens, those are warm season. Any salvias, those are warm season. So you would start those, May 15th or March 15th, and then not set them out until after May 15th. So excellent question. Okay, here we go. The next one is, here's another one from Susan. What is a good thing to put in the paths of a garden to keep weeds down and look nice? Man, Susan, this is not seed starting again, but I'm going to answer it. Okay, when you're talking about to put in the paths of a garden to keep weeds down, I'm going to translate that as how do you prevent weeds in a garden path? And I would recommend that you use preen. Preen it prevents any weed seeds from germinating. So I'm not going to talk about putting down mulch. But I'll touch base with you later on that. Okay. The next one is Michael Murphy. Do willow branches and leaves make a good mulch for the garden? Thank you. Well, willow branches or leaves, if you chop them up, yes, that would make a great mulch. And then branches also, if you chop them up and like a chip. Now, the nice thing about willow is it has salicylic acid in it, which is what aspirin is made from. Not that that helps the plants, but just a little point of interest. Yes, it would be a fine mulch. Okay, and then now here's Jen. I have raised beds and have that have plastic lids. Okay, plastic covers. Okay, and can I put out seedlings? I start inside earlier than yes. If you've got covers on your raised beds, yes, you can get the plants out earlier. But boy, watch it. Those plastic covers can really do the classic greenhouse effect, where if you do have a warm, sunny day, the temperature can really go get high. And so kind of monitor it and only leave the covers down when the temperatures can be harmful to the plants that are out there. So if the temperatures are going to be freezing or below, then that's when you keep the covers down. Good question. What a neat set. That sounds really fun. Okay, let's do this. All right, now Michael Murphy, do you recommend a light meter to measure lumens, or how high? Oh, RE, how high to put your grow light? Oh, you can use a light meter, but usually the rule of thumb is to just leave the light at 6 to 8 inches above the surface of the foliage, and then elevate it as the plant's getting taller and taller and taller. I'm old school. I always use a light meter, but they don't talk in terms of that anymore. They're talking about micromoles and things like that. And I'm sure they're still using light meters, but anyway. Okay, next one. And I'm looking at the time. Great. This is Chris, director. Hi, Chris. Here's a hug. When I miss her. I haven't seen her because of COVID. Okay, can you tell if seeds are viable by floating them in water? Love your coaching. Thank you. That's not really the truest test about whether they'll float in water. The concept behind that is that if they're hydrated, they'll float. If they're not hydrated, it's the other way. If they're not hydrated, they float. If they're hydrated, they sink because they have the same. But there are a lot of seeds that are really that will float. So that's not a good one. That's not a good one. Hey, great to see you. Great to see you and your name. Thank you so much. Okay, next question. This is Mary B. How deep do we need to dig up the soil before planting vegetables? And do we treat the soil, and when? That's a great question. Usually, and there's two schools of thought. If you're going to add organic matter, you add that on the top and dig it in. Now, and those are things like cotton burr compost, leaf mulch, chalet compost, and then there's also a wonderful vegetable mix from the Dr. Earth people. It's the vegetable garden planting mix, and they say to work that in. There's another school that says do not disturb the soil. When you disturb the soil by digging it up and digging it over, then you bring seeds up to the surface. So you can have a higher problem of seeds and weeds because of that. What I have done in my own personal vegetable garden, and you saw my raised beds, is every spring there is always some erosion, and then when I've harvested the old crops out at the end of the season, you lose some of the mix, or the planting mix. So I just top it off every year. I top it off with an inch or 2 inches of the Dr. Earth vegetable planting mix. And then when I plant my plants in, or my seeds, as I'm digging through to plant those plants, my transplants or my seeds, I'm digging that Dr. Earth mix down into the existing mix. And then the rest of it stays undisturbed. And that Dr. Earth soil mix works as a mulch to keep any weed seeds from germinating. And it also holds the soil temperature and moisture more even. You can also do that with just plain old cotton burr compost, excuse me, and or leaf mulch. I'm becoming more and more of a fan of not disturbing and not digging. Now, if you're starting from scratch, then that's when you want to kind of dig it all together so you have a consistent mix all the way through. So that was a good question. And okay, here we go. Pardon me. Oh, here's Susan again. Can you explain indeterminate and determinate tomatoes? Yes. Indeterminate type tomatoes, and it says it on the package. I was going to pull a package of tomatoes up. I thought I had one. I didn't bring a tomato package. But indeterminate means that type of plant keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, and they can get up to be 6 to 10 feet tall. And then they just keep producing and producing and producing and producing. They keep making new flowers and then setting more fruit. And it just goes and goes and goes until it freezes to death. Now, indeterminate types, they're usually the types that are used for canning, and especially for large companies that do canning. That they'll do all the fields with indeterminate. So the plant gets to a certain height, and usually it's 3 feet to 4 feet tall, stops growing, produces its whole crop, and you harvest all at once. Now, that works better in warmer zones than us, like zone 6, because then you get the crop all at once. Our season is so short that we start getting a crop and it just kind of keeps growing all season. So the determinate types are really fun and easy to use in containers because they get to a certain height, they stop, and then you get your crop through the whole season. So that's the difference between indeterminate and determinate. And then there's also combination ones. And then there's also a new group called the dwarfs. And the dwarfs were derived from hybridizing between tomato aficionados here in the United States and Australia. And the new dwarfs are so wonderful because they'll only get to be about 2 feet tall. They can grow in a 10-inch diameter pot, and they produce like crazy, usually smaller tomatoes. So a good question. Watching the time here. Okay, we answered that one. And then done. And then Linda Murphy, do these tips apply to planting flower seeds versus vegetables, or is that a different session? Oh no, this works for early season and for early season, late season, warm season, crops. You can use these exactly the same. They're the same, planting the seeds at only the depth of the diameter of the seed. Same. Yeah, great question. Thank you. All right, and here we go again. And then here's another one. Thank you for your time and knowledge. I appreciate it. Great information. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you so much. And then Mary Me, tips on starting potatoes. Ooh, well, potatoes are not seeds. They're not seeds. And we should be getting the starts in this coming week. And I hope everyone's still on here. Oh, there's only 31 of you here. Starting tomorrow, the 12th, is our wonderful kind of reward system to the Chalet customer rewards members. And anything in the garden center called Garden Essentials is 20% off. So your fertilizers, your seeds, your pots, anything, even home, the home decor area. So all the purchases from the 12th to the 28th are 20% off. And it's our way of saying happy spring to you. So, you're going to love it. It's such a great, great thing to do. So, and then, okay. And then, and then back to the potatoes. You were going to get the starters, and with potatoes, we either give them whole potatoes or as cut up, and they're cut up already. And they quarter or eighth a potato, and each of a quarter or the eighth has an eye on it, and it's been allowed to dry, and it calluses. The cut surface is callous, and then that's what you plant in the garden, and you can plant them in a pot inside if you want, and get them started, in the pot, and then the eye starts growing, roots grow. They use the carbohydrates on the part of the tuber, and to help give them the food that they need. And then the green starts growing, and then you transplant them out into the garden. So, and then we also do that. We're also going to be getting onion sets, so they'll be coming in also. So that was a quick, fast thing on doing potatoes, but it really is that easy. I mean, you can actually go buy one of your favorite potatoes at the grocery store and cut it up, let it callus for 5 days, and then, plant it out in the garden. So, that's how all of our ancestors did it. Okay. And then Marion Wolf, another great webinar. Thank you so much, Marion. Thank you for a fantastic presentation. Very worthwhile and very timely. Thank you so much. Everybody, you all are just so great. And it's now 11. Let me see, I think, okay, let me see. These were all just wonderful thank yous. And I was checking to make sure, we didn't, everyone, you're being so good about not putting them on the chat and putting them all in questions and answers. So I hope to see you in the store this weekend and next week, and enjoy this wonderful weather. Although I heard Tracy Butler talking about snow again on Monday. Oh, I know it's still winter, but thank you all. Oh, here's another question. I'm going to scroll down to make sure I catch it. Oh, here we go. Okay. There's a couple. Oh my God, there's a whole bunch. Okay, will the PowerPoint be on the web? Not necessarily the PowerPoint, but the video. The video is going to be, this webinar. It's called a webinar. This webinar will be on the Chalet YouTube page, okay? And it'll be posted on Monday. And so then you can watch this again and share it with everybody. I love that they're making these available, that people can go back and watch them again. And then Rowena, thank you. And then Connie H, thank you so much, everybody. I miss seeing you, so be sure and say hi when you come in to buy all your products. Oh, I was going to show you this. This is the self-watering kit. I just think this is the coolest thing. And so you can take the package off. There's the dome, so you have your dome. This is the dome that comes out. Okay. And that goes on top. And then inside has, you have your wicking mat, okay, right here. And then isn't this cool? This is the set that holds the pellets, the Jiffy pellets. And then you can see on the bottom, that's the hole where the roots all come out to have contact with the mat, the wicking mat. And then inside, and then they can be refilled with, this is the refill package. Is that cool? So you just use it over and over. You sterilize it every year. You wash the wicking mat in the washing machine and dry it in the dryer. And then the way you set it together is this is set down on here. And then you turn this is the elevating tray. You turn it over. And so then see how it has the elevators right there. And then that goes in right here. And then this goes, well, I'm not doing it right. Hold on. This goes on top of this. So you've got, see how the corners are, wait, let's do it right. Okay, see the corners are notched right here. These corners are notched. Oh, here, these corners are notched right there. So the notched corner goes over the notched tray. So right there is notched corner. And then over on this side, there's a notched corner. And so then this tucks under like this. I'm going to see it tucks under like that. And then this one tucks under right here. And then it sits down, and then that would be inside the water. And then you've got your seed holding things in here, and you put your notches over where the notches all are. I think I can hold this up. See this notched end, and that's where you pour the water. And you can also see if there's water down in there. You can stick your finger down in there, or right here or here. So you have two corners, and then there you go. Oh, I can show you what one looks like if it's hydrated. So here's a hydrated one right here. And then I'm just going to show you what it looks like sitting in there. Look, see, isn't that cool? It sits right there. And then all of them would be up that level. And see, then when the plants come up, they come up and they're underneath the dome. So that holds the humidity. And you just check to make sure it always has water in the bottom. Makes it easy, makes it real easy. And it also makes it really successful. That's what you want. You want success. So thank you, everybody. So they always say, stay tuned for the credits, huh? Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.